Level 1. The Instant Coffee Kid. You're 15 years old, and coffee, to you, is a spoonful of instant granules dissolved in hot milk because your mom drinks it that way, and it's what's in the cupboard. You don't think about coffee. You drink it because it's there, sweet and milky, more sugar than anything else. Then one afternoon, you're at a friend's house, and his older brother makes a pour-over. Slow, circular pours from a gooseneck kettle over a cone dripper, and the smell that comes off it is nothing like what's in your cupboard. You ask what it is. He says, Ethiopian, washed process, and the words mean nothing to you, but you remember them. You go home and look it up. You fall into a YouTube hole that lasts 4 hours. Coffee has origins. Coffee has processing methods. Coffee has flavor notes that sound insane. Blueberry, jasmine, brown sugar, from a bean that's just a bean. You didn't know any of this existed. You save up 30 euros from odd jobs and buy a cheap plastic V60 dripper and a bag of filters. You use pre-ground supermarket coffee because you don't have a grinder yet, and you don't know that matters. The coffee you make is thin and a little sour. You don't know why. You just know it's not what you tasted at your friend's house, and now you need to figure out the difference. That need is the whole story from here. Level 2. The Beginner Enthusiast. You're 17, and your bedroom has more coffee equipment in it than clothes. A hand grinder you bought after watching 6 comparison videos. A digital scale accurate to 0.1 grams, because apparently that matters. A cheap gooseneck kettle you found secondhand. You've learned that pre-ground coffee stales in hours and whole beans stale in weeks, so you buy small bags from a local roaster instead of supermarket tins. The first time you grind your own beans and brew immediately after, the difference is not subtle. It's obvious even to your parents, who don't care about coffee and still notice. You start keeping notes: grind size, water temperature, brew time, ratio of coffee to water. You learn that most people brew coffee by feel, and most of them are brewing it wrong without knowing it, under-extracting or over-extracting and just accepting whatever comes out. You don't want to accept it. You want to understand it. You read that extraction is basically a percentage, how much of the coffee's soluble mass ends up in your cup, and that the sweet spot most people agree on sits between 18 and 22%. You don't have a refractometer yet. You're guessing based on taste: sour meaning under-extracted, bitter and hollow meaning over-extracted. You brew the same coffee 12 different ways over 2 weeks, trying to find the version that tastes balanced. On the 9th attempt, you get it. Sweet, clean. A fruit note you can actually name without someone telling you what to taste. You call your friend's older brother and describe it to him like you discovered something. He laughs and tells you that you just discovered what everyone in this hobby discovers eventually, that coffee is not a drink, it's a variable you can control if you're patient enough to learn which knobs actually do something. Level 3. The Home Barista. You're 19 now, and you've moved past filter coffee into espresso, which is a different discipline entirely and humbles you immediately. You buy a used entry-level espresso machine and a basic grinder, both secondhand, both slightly broken in ways you don't discover until you've already paid. The first shot you pull looks nothing like the espresso you've seen online. It's pale, it runs too fast, it has almost no crema. You learn that espresso has maybe 15 variables that all interact with each other: dose, grind size, tamping pressure, water temperature, pre-infusion, shot time. And changing one changes what all the others need to be. You dial in a single bag of beans for 4 days straight before you get a shot that pulls in 27 seconds, tastes balanced, and actually has that reddish-brown crema you'd been chasing. You film it on your phone like it's an achievement, because it is. You start steaming milk next, and this is worse than the espresso. Your first attempts are either flat, dead milk with big bubbles, or shrieking, scalded, thin foam that tastes burnt. You learn to listen for the sound: a tearing paper hiss during aeration, then a whirlpool sound during texturing. You practice with plain water first, because wasting milk feels wasteful even to a 19-year-old with no money sense. When you finally get microfoam that pours smooth and glossy, you try your first latte art, a rosetta, and it comes out as a formless blob. You try again and again. 40 attempts later, you pour something that actually looks like a fern. It's crooked. You don't care. This is the same feeling every home barista chases, the exact moment a mechanical process turns into something that looks like it required skill, because it did. Level 4, the barista. You're 22 now, and you take a job at a specialty coffee shop, not because you need the money badly, though you do, but because you want to make coffee for strangers all day and see if you're actually good or just good in your bedroom. Your first shift humbles you completely. The espresso machine is commercial grade, 3 groups, and the pace is nothing like home. Stack up, a queue forms, someone wants an oat milk flat white with extra hot, someone else wants a pour-over on bar, which takes 4 minutes you don't have. The head barista, who's been doing this for 6 years, works with a calm efficiency that looks unremarkable until you try to match it and can't. You burn your wrist on the steam wand twice in the first week. You get yelled at, gently, for tamping unevenly and pulling a channeled shot that runs sour on one side. You learn that consistency under pressure is the entire job, that anyone can make one great coffee once, and the actual skill is making the 200th cup of the day taste identical to the first. You learn to read customers, the ones who want to talk about the coffee and the ones who just want their order fast and don't care that the beans are a natural process Colombian with a note of strawberry jam. 6 months in, a regular customer asks for you specifically because you remember her order and get the milk temperature exactly how she likes it. That's a small thing. It doesn't feel small. You start entering in-house latte art throwdowns on slow afternoons, small competitions among staff, and you play second in one against baristas who've been doing this 3 times as long as you. Your manager notices. She starts giving you the harder tickets, the 6-drink orders during the Saturday rush, because she trusts you not to fall apart. Level 5, the specialty obsessive. You're 25, and coffee has stopped being a job and started being closer to a discipline you organize your life around. You've learned to cup coffee properly, the standardized method roasters and buyers use to evaluate beans. A spoon slurp that aerates the coffee across your whole palate, spitting or swallowing, scoring aroma, flavor, acidity, body, and aftertaste on an SCA sheet out of 100 points. You attend a public cupping at a local roastery for the first time, and you're intimidated. Everyone around the table calls out descriptors instantly: stone fruit, cardamom, black tea, and you taste the same cup and get nothing specific, just generically nice. The roaster running the session tells you this is normal, that your palate is a muscle and right now it's untrained, and that in a year of deliberate practice you'll taste things you can't taste today. You start a home cupping habit, buying small bags from different origins, Kenya, Ethiopia, Colombia, Guatemala, and cupping them side by side every week, writing down every descriptor you can find, wrong ones included. You buy a cheap refractometer to finally measure extraction and TDS objectively instead of guessing. The first time your measured extraction matches what you predicted by taste alone, something clicks. The same feeling as getting an answer right in your head before checking the back of the textbook. You start studying for the Q Grader certification, the coffee industry's formal tasting qualification, a brutal, multi-day exam testing your ability to identify defects, calibrate your palate against a panel, and score coffee within a tight tolerance of expert consensus. You fail your first attempt at the triangulation test, distinguishing subtle differences between nearly identical cups. You study for 4 more months and pass on the second attempt. You are now, on paper, someone whose palate has been tested and verified. It changes how seriously roasters take your opinion, and it changes how seriously you take your own. Level 6, the competitor. You're 29, and you decide to compete in a regional barista championship, the kind that feeds into national and eventually world-level competition. This is nothing like the in-house throwdowns from your barista days. You have 15 minutes on stage, 4 judges, a signature drink round where you create an original beverage using espresso and 1 other ingredient, and a full technical scoring sheet judging your cleanliness, your workflow, your ability to explain the coffee's story, its farm, its processing, its flavor profile, with genuine expertise rather than memorized script. You choose a coffee you've cupped dozens of times, a washed Kenyan with a berry acidity you know intimately. You build a signature drink around it for 3 months, testing ingredient pairings, discarding 4 failed versions before landing on one that actually complements the coffee instead of masking it. You rehearse your 15 minutes obsessively, timing every movement, because losing points on timing after months of preparation would be its own particular kind of painful. Competition day, you're nervous in a way home brewing never made you nervous. You spill milk on your station during setup. You recover. You pull your signature shots, and they run 4 seconds long, which you notice and the judges notice too. You finish with 11 seconds to spare. You place 4th out of 11 competitors. You don't win, but a judge pulls you aside afterward and tells you your palette description was the most precise she'd heard all day, more precise than some competitors with twice your experience. That comment matters more than the placing. You realize competing isn't really about winning the first time. It's about finding out, under real pressure, whether the skill you've built alone actually holds up in front of people who know exactly what to look for. Level 7. The Roaster. You're 33, and you've moved from the front of house to the back, learning to roast. Roasting is a different kind of pressure. No crowd, no 15-minute clock, but the coffee tells the truth about your decisions days later when someone brews it, and it's either right or it's ruined. You apprentice under a roaster who's been doing this for 18 years. Your first solo roast is uneven, a first crack that happens too fast because you applied too much heat too early, and the batch tastes baked, flat, all the fruit notes gone. You learn to read a roast by sound, the crackling of first crack, the more subtle sound of second crack if you push that far, by smell and by the roast curve on a screen tracking bean temperature against time. You learn that a coffee's brightest, most complex flavors live in a narrow window, in that 10 seconds too far in either direction can lose them permanently. You develop your first signature roast profile after 40 failed attempts on the same lot, a natural process Ethiopian you've cupped enough times to know exactly what it's capable of. When you finally nail it, the batch tastes like the fruit bowl you'd been chasing the whole time, and you cup it against your mentor's version, and yours wins the blind comparison. He doesn't say much. He just nods and starts asking your opinion on other lots, which is its own kind of promotion. You start sourcing coffee directly now, building relationships with importers and occasionally with the farms themselves, learning that a coffee's quality is decided mostly before it ever reaches you, in the cherry picking, the processing, the drying, and that your job as a roaster is closer to translation than creation.
Level 8. The Shop Owner. You're 38, and you open your own roastery and cafe, a small space with 2 roasting drums, a service bar, and a loan you took out against everything you own. The technical side is the part you've already mastered. The business side humbles you the way espresso once did. Cash flow, wholesale contracts with cafes who want your beans but negotiate hard on price, staff scheduling, a lease that costs more than you projected, a walk-in cooler that breaks in July and costs 4,000 euros during your slowest month. You train your own baristas the way you were trained, correcting channeled shots, teaching them to taste extraction instead of just following a recipe. One of them turns out to have a genuinely exceptional palate, better than yours was at her age, and you push her toward her own Q-grader certification, because the knowledge is worth more moving than sitting still in one person. Your roastery starts winning small recognition, a mention in a regional coffee guide, a wholesale account with 3 well-regarded cafes in the next city over. You're not famous. Inside the specialty coffee world, you're known. People at trade cuppings know your roasts by name before they know your face. 5 years in, the business is stable. Not wealthy, but stable, and you've stopped counting the hours you work because counting them would be discouraging. Level 9, the Coffee Elder. You're 44, and you've been asked to judge a national barista championship, the same kind of stage you once stood on, scoring competitors with the same trembling nervousness you remember. You take the judging seriously in a way that surprises the younger version of you, who once assumed judges were just experienced people with opinions. You understand now that judging well is its own skill. Calibrating your palate against other judges before the competition even begins so your scores are consistent with theirs. Staying disciplined enough not to be swayed by a confident presentation over an honestly average cup. You watch a 22-year-old competitor deliver a signature drink built around a coffee you roasted yourself, and there is something strange and satisfying about tasting your own work through someone else's interpretation of it. Your roastery has trained 4 people who've gone on to open their own shops. One of them still sends you a bag from every new harvest lot before releasing it publicly, asking what you taste, because your opinion still means something to her, the way a mentor's opinion meant something to you decades ago. Your palate is sharper now than it's ever been, tuned by thousands of cups over 30 years, but your hands are slower on the machine than they used to be, and you notice that, and it doesn't bother you the way it might have at 25. You've made peace with the fact that mastery in this world is never a finish line, only a longer and longer list of things you finally understand you don't fully understand. And somewhere right now, a 15-year-old is drinking instant coffee dissolved in warm milk because that's what's in the cupboard, tasting nothing remarkable in it at all, with no idea that 4 hours from now they'll fall into a video about pour-over technique and never look at a cup of coffee the same way again. They'll buy a cheap dripper, they'll burn milk on a second-hand machine, they'll fail the triangulation test once before they pass it, they'll spill something during a competition they've prepared for months. They'll learn what you learned, that the difference between a drink and a discipline is just how many questions you're willing to keep asking about it. The cycle continues.